I'm constantly hearing the same story from people who finally decide to turn their game room into a mini arcade. They find a sleek shuffleboard table online, click Add to Cart, and when the box finally lands in the hallway, the surface looks glossy, the legs are a little wobbly, and the whole thing feels like a showpiece rather than a game you can actually play for hours. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've seen that disappointment happen enough times that I started actually reading forums, watching a handful of YouTube unboxings, and even talking to a couple of owners who've kept their tables for a few years. The goal of today's review is to make sure you don't end up with a table that looks great in the pictures, but ends up collecting dust because it just isn't practical for regular family use. First off, let's talk about what makes a shuffleboard table work in a real home environment. The Playfield needs a consistent, smooth surface that won't develop dead spots after a few games. The legs have to stay level on uneven floors, and the scoring system should actually be easy to read without a manual. The Hathaway Cheyenne 12-foot model promises a tournament-level 1.75-inch poly-coated playfield, dual pedestal support, and a built-in scorer that flashes the current points. Those are the headline claims, but the real question is, how do they translate when you pull the table out of the box and start sliding pucks across it? When I unpacked the Cheyenne, the first thing I noticed was the rustic oak finish paired with aged metal hardware. It does look like something you could put against a reclaimed wood wall and have it blend right in. The wood veneer isn't just for show. It actually feels solid under my hands, and the metal brackets feel like they were bolted on, not just clipped. The dual pedestal base is a nice touch compared to the single-leg designs you see on cheaper models. It spreads the weight across a larger footprint, which helps keep the table from rocking when you're pushing a hard shot. That said, the base is also fairly bulky, so you'll need a decent amount of clearance around the table, especially if you're planning to keep it in a multi-use space where you might have chairs or a sofa nearby. One of the biggest practical concerns for families is floor unevenness. Most basements and garages have a bit of a slope, and a table that doesn't compensate can end up with a tilt that makes every shot feel off. The Cheyenne includes leg levelers, those little screw-in feet that you can adjust to compensate for a sloped floor. In my test, it took about 5 minutes to get the table perfectly level on a concrete slab that was a 1/4 inch higher at one end. The adjustment range is generous enough that you won't need a separate shim kit, which is a small but significant convenience. Now let's talk about the playfield surface. The poly-coated finish is marketed as tournament level, meaning it should stay slick for a long time without needing constant waxing. I ran a quick series of shots, alternating between a light touch and a full-force push, just to see how the pucks behaved. The pucks glided consistently across the entire length, and there were no dead spots where the puck would suddenly slow down. After an hour of continuous play, I gave the surface a quick brush with the included wax brush and a dab of the supplied wax. The wax went on smoothly and didn't create a sticky residue, which suggests the coating is receptive to the maintenance routine that serious players expect. For occasional family games, you might never need to wax at all, but it's good to know the option is there. The built-in scorer is where the Cheyenne tries to set itself apart from the bare-bones models that just come with a scoreboard and a chalkboard. The digital display lights up each time a puck lands in a scoring zone, and it automatically adds the points to the team total. In practice, the scorer works fine for a 2-team game, but it can get confused if you have more than 4 players rotating in a single match. The interface isn't customizable, so you can't rename teams or change the scoring rules without a manual reset. If you're the type of family that likes to keep the rules flexible, say, playing a first to 20 variant or awarding bonus points for certain shots, you'll find yourself pausing to adjust the manual. It's not a deal breaker, but it's something to be aware of. Another feature that sounds great on paper is the climate adjusters. Those are basically small vents on the underside of the playfield that claim to help the table adapt to humidity changes, preventing the surface from expanding or contracting. In my experience, they don't make a noticeable difference unless you're in a very humid climate. But the fact that Hathaway thought about it suggests they're targeting serious players who care about consistency. If you live in a dry desert climate, you might never notice.